Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today, coming to you once again from the Senior Botanical Garden in Kernersville, our home away from home. We'll tell you more about them later on. Later on is when the roundtable shows up, by the way, and we'll get into all sorts of controversies with them. Some great guests throughout the half hour, and I hope you'll stay with us. But where we want to start is in sort of getting back to shape and doing more activities, but doing it safely and doing it without getting injured. And if you do get injured, what do? We have a gentleman that's going to help us with all those topics. Next to me, Dr. Steve Lucy, orthopedic surgeon, among other things, wears many hats. Wake Forest Baptist Health. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
First of all, let's remind folks what sports medicine entails, because we're going to mention that throughout the segment.
Sure. Sports medicine, really generally speaking, is just caring for athletes, but it's athletes of all ages. The difference would be if I have just a general orthopedic patient that's not an athlete at all, you might devise one treatment plan, but if it's an athlete, then you have to factor in the return to sport. There's usually more aggressive nature to those patients, and so really the sports medicine aspect comes into really taking that treatment plan and shifting it with a goal in mind of return to sport, return before the season starts, factoring those seasons in.
But you don't have to be a professional or seasoned athlete to get help in sports med, though, right?
Absolutely not. No, we pride ourselves in taking care of athletes from young children to people in their 80s that are still active.
Yeah. How about me? I was active 60 years ago.
You're still an athlete.
Yeah. All right. What are some common everyday injuries? We'll get into some things related to the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, but the everyday injuries that you would treat anyway.
As a knee specialist, I see a lot of knee injuries, obviously, cartilage tears, things like that are just kind of run-of-the-mill. That can happen with just a twisting injury, from CrossFit to boot camp class to tennis or anything else. But a little bit more broadly in orthopedics, there's a lot of overuse injuries in children, younger athletes, and there's a lot of, let's just call it, degenerative overuse as we get older. You could run 5 miles 30 years ago, but 5 miles now may feel very, very different to your patella tendons.
Right.
And so sometimes we see the overuse just because people are aging, their tendons are aging, and they get inflamed.
As we try to come out of this pandemic, and we're still sort of in the throes of it, but we're doing better because of vaccines. But more and more people are starting to get outside. The weather's getting better. So as we increase activity, what are we going to have to be careful of? What injuries are we likely to experience?
Right. So it is very, very common to see injuries from people going from a period of relative inactivity, which COVID obviously has been that for just about everyone, to a period of much increased activity. So a classic example would be the football player kid that shows up with 2-a-days or 3-a-days in August after not doing a whole lot during the summer, and they come in with tendonitis or this or that. So it's kind of a corollary to COVID, where a lot of people are coming out of quarantine and they're really just so thankful to see some sun, and they go out and they start running a bunch of miles or doing something very, very aggressive. So the key really is just to graduate into that and be progressive with your activity level and be very, very realistic and have a plan and not try to do it all at once.
Right, and the same thing with a casual person who said, well, before the pandemic, I would go and jog for 3 miles, and then they go right out there and try the 3 miles right after their first time out. So
then they walk into my office.
Yeah, they walk, they crawl into you. They have to be carried into your office. You sent me an email one day that referenced a comprehensive team. You used the term comprehensive team when it comes to your sports med program. What do you mean?
So, Wake has every level, every piece of that team, and many of them across the triad. And so, you might have your orthopedic surgeon at the top, but really we're actually the bottom of a funnel, where if it's a surgical, situation, we have to get involved. But there are physical therapists, athletic trainers, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, a lot of people that see those patients, touch those patients, and then, of course, diagnose those patients, and then out of that diagnosis is a treatment plan, and you've got a whole team of folks.
Yeah, of course, people see, when they drive by the interstate and everything, they see the main campus there, Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center, and they say, oh, well, I guess, Dr. Lucy must be talking about he's got a sports med clinic right next to the hospital, but you guys are a lot of different places.
So we have offices all over the Triad and beyond, and that relationship is growing with our relationship with Atrium down in Charlotte, but my office is in Greensboro. We have offices in Randolph County and Asheboro, High Point all the way up, Wilkes County, North Wilkesboro. So Wake Forest footprint in the Triad is quite large.
All right, up on screen, this will get you some information, wakehealth.edu/sports medicine. Try that out, wakehealth.edu/sports medicine. Dr. Lucy, thanks for all you do in helping people. Will you come back sometime?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be right back. Now on Triad Today, and we normally don't talk about colleges from like the eastern part of the state. I mean, because this is Triad Today. But anyway, we have a special guest here who emailed me and said, oh yeah, we're going to sort of talk about a college in the eastern part of the state. Next to me is our good friend, Dr. Bob Shackleberg, who's president of Randolph Community College. Welcome to you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jim. Good to be with you.
Now, you said you signed some agreement with another college, and I want to know what that's all about.
Well, we did. We had a great signing ceremony last week with Mount Olive, the University of Mount Olive in eastern North Carolina. And it's an agreement about transferring our agricultural programs. We've just gotten into agriculture the last year or so.
That's right.
A great young man, Derek Coleman, who's very enthusiastic. And we've got an agreement with them so that not only do all of our credits transfer, but for the junior and senior year, they will come up here to our campus and teach junior and senior year courses along with some online courses, and they can get an actual degree, a bachelor's degree in agriculture from the University of Mount Olive in Randolph County.
Yeah, now, you know, I had never heard of that happening before. We talked before about transfer. We talked about transferring credits for various things. But for the transfer to go both ways so that you've got instructors coming up from Mount Olive to help with your students in Randolph is just amazing. That's going to be pretty cool.
It's an incredible opportunity. I mean, most transfer agreements are what we call 2+2. Take 2 years there and then come to us for 2 years.
Right.
They're saying take 2 years there and then we'll come to you the next 2 years.
That's fascinating. Now, let me go back to something you mentioned a minute ago when you said, yeah, we started this, and I didn't want to let it pass. We started this agricultural program because people who watch the show, people who've known you for years and your reputation, they know that Randolph has really been a leader in manufacturing and technology and all these things that get people prepared for jobs. Why the focus on agriculture?
It's really an amazing story, Jim. Randolph County, unknown to most people, has the most farms of any county in North Carolina.
I didn't know that.
We have 1,500 farms that sell about over $250 million in goods every year. We're not the typical tobacco farming county in North Carolina. We're number one in beef cattle. We're number one in goats. We're number two in dairy cattle. We're number three in hay.
You got horse farms?
Horse farms. We're number six in eggs. Broilers and layers. We're number six. We lead the top in nearly every category. And who would think of Randolph County having 1,500 farms?
Yeah, and these programs that Mount Olive are not, when you're starting the agricultural programs, they're pretty diverse kinds of courses too in terms of the kind of careers that people can go in.
That's exactly right. People think of agriculture as just the family farm, and the kids grow up on the family farm and then they do it. But it's a big business. It's a huge part of the economy of Randolph County and North Carolina, actually. And so we started a program in agribusiness. Not only how do you go out and plant seeds and get a crop in if the weather's good, but how do you make a living? How do you turn this into a productive business? And so we're teaching courses under agribusiness. We're teaching horticulture, agritourism, agricultural mechanics. We're teaching people chemistry courses that will help them with soil preparation, productivity, how to make your crops more productive.
So you're really holding to what you've always done, which is to make sure you're having relevant courses where there are jobs out there now that people can do. I just think that's great. I want to, before time gets away, put up the website, of course, where you can find out all sorts of information about Randolph Community College, and that is www.randolph.edu, randolph.edu. And I think this is just fascinating. It's a whole new dimension that's going to help your students and help the whole region, Bob, and I appreciate it.
Well, one last thing I'll mention about the new dimensions. We are starting a zoological horticulture program working with the North Carolina Zoo. They spend 6 times more money on plants than they do animals. That's going to be our lab.
Wow. We ought to get somebody from the zoo to come back with you, too. That's pretty good.
That'd be great.
We'll do that. All right. Good news. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate
you.
it. We'll be right back after this. And Triad Today, always glad we can spend a few minutes with the good folks from Duke Energy and find out what they're up to and how they are serving us, and they do it very well. And next to me is our good buddy who's been here before, Davis Montgomery, is District Manager for Local Government and Community Relations for Duke Energy. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Good to see you.
I want to learn something about renewable energy and about energy storage and things. I said, well, the perfect person, just have Davis on. So I'm going to hit you with a few questions on that. First thing is, I understand you guys are very involved with renewable energy. So what do you mean by that?
So we've got a commitment out there that we're going to be carbon free by 2050. So we have to replace some of the fossil fuel generation units that we have with something else, and renewable is the answer to that question.
There was an email you sent me, and I'm going to read it here, and it said that you're talking about energy storage, and that energy storage supports decarbonization. So I guess it's a two-pronged question. What do you mean by energy storage, and what do you mean by decarbonization?
So energy storage can take several different forms. We've been doing energy storage for a long time if you think about lakes and dams and hydro units. So the energy storage is the lake and the water behind the dam. The pressure builds up, you run it across a generation unit, and you generate electricity.
Okay.
The new term for it, or the new idea for it, is solar energy. So you have solar panels out there that are generating electricity. Because renewable energy can be intermittent, cloud comes over, the energy output goes down to zero, the cloud goes by, it goes back up to 100%. That's hard to manage, it's intermittent. So if you can store that energy, keep it for the time that you need it, then you're able to make better use of it.
Well, I got you. And so the whole decarbonization thing is just saying it's going to cut down on the use of fossil fuels and other things if we can store it and keep going. All right, I'm with you now. Now, are there any energy storage projects that you might want to mention that you guys at Duke Energy are already involved in or undertaking?
Sure. So the one that I talked about earlier, the hydro storage unit, we have one over in Bad Creek, which is in the western part of the state. It's basically a small lake with big tunnels through the bottom of it, and we drop the water out of that lake and generate electricity. That's the one that's been around forever. The most recent one that we have is up in the western part of the state. There's a radio tower that sits on the top of a mountain that's out in the middle of nowhere. And we have a line all the way up to that radio tower to keep power to it. During storms and such, that it goes down. It's very hard and very difficult to get up there to repair it and do all the maintenance and stuff on it.
Right.
So we came up with a combination of solar panels and a battery storage unit that now supplies all the energy to that tower, and we're able to not have those dangerous repair situations and as many outages.
That's real interesting. Now, when you mentioned that, and also going back to the other thing about, with dams and storing up energy and all that, let me just put it on you this way. If I'm representing the consumer, and I am a consumer, I'm a customer of yours, how does all this that you're talking about, renewable energy, energy storage, these various projects, how does that benefit me as a customer personally?
In two ways. One, as you take a look at the price of renewable energy and bringing that price down, it means lower, affordable, reliable energy for you as a customer. The second is, if you look at the governor's energy plan, if you look at the federal administration's energy plan, it's all about getting away from carbonization and fossil fuels. And so it benefits you in terms of a cleaner climate.
All right, cleaner climate, I believe in that, and saving some money out of my pocketbook, and I believe in that too. That's pretty good. Before time gets away from us, I want to put up some information on screen. Two actual websites. One is the main Duke Energy website. It's www.duke-energy.com. That's the main website. But I also want to mention generatingprogress.com. Generatingprogress.com is one that sort of gets some information, as Jimmy Flythe and other people have talked about. That website helps sort of get some updated information to the consumers, right?
You can dig in as deeply on some subjects as you want to go.
That's great. Or we can just call you at home. I'll put up your home number, and no, we wouldn't do
It won't be the first time.
That's right. All right, Davis, thanks for doing this and bringing us up to speed. Sounds pretty good.
It should be good for the state. It should be good for our customers, and just gets us all to a brighter future.
All right, sir. We'll see you next time.
I appreciate it very much.
We'll be right back. Start is with a couple of ladies who have come to us from Mountain Valley Hospice and Palliative Care. We're always glad when their folks can come down here and visit with us, but especially today because they just recently started up a new kind of service. and a new office to do those services in and provide those services. And let's meet them right now. On my immediate right, a first-time visitor to the show, Tracy Dobson is President and CEO of Mountain Valley Hospice and Palliative Care, and socially distanced behind us, our good friend Christy Sharpa. She's Senior Director of Practice Management and Serious Illness Services, and they both wear a lot of different hats, but we welcome both of you to the program.
Thank you.
And Tracy, just to remind folks, let me start out and just get you to say what hospice is and who you serve very quickly.
Okay, hospice is a nonprofit organization, and we serve the seriously ill and those that are facing end-of-life care.
And, you know, when you key in on that word nonprofit, and I want to take just a second to mention something, because a lot of people may think that all organizations like this are nonprofit, and they're not. They're some profit, which means that some of these organizations, not to disparage anybody, but they can turn people away, and you don't, right?
No, we don't. We serve those that cannot pay for themselves.
All right, now let me turn to Chrissy, for example, because I mentioned a few seconds ago a new kind of service, and it's called Serious Illness Services. I want to find out about that. What is that exactly?
So serious illness services are for patients who have a very advanced serious illness that is upstream from hospice. So these are patients that might have advanced heart failure or lung disease, maybe a cancer or a dementia, just to name a few. And they are struggling with symptoms or making decisions about what they want to have done for their health care. And it's really, it's a heavy, complex process to be seriously ill, and it can be a very long journey, sometimes over years.
Right.
And so to walk that journey alone is a heavy road to bear, so.
Absolutely, and I know from experience and having positive experience with hospice for both my parents, there is that long period of time when you have extended illnesses, and it's different from someone who might need end-of-life care because they've just gotten a diagnosis that maybe they have 4 or 5 months left. We're talking about folks that, as you said, could have these chronic things that go on for years. Because in hospice, you're making people comfortable, but with what you're talking about, let's say that I've got a medical condition, can I just keep going to my doctor and getting medicines and getting treatments and still getting your help?
Absolutely. All your specialists, all of the interventions that you might have, it might be chemotherapy, it might be a surgery, any type of intervention that stays in place. And we are a supplement. We are another layer of the medical team to bring support. And our focus is a bit less on the disease and a bit more on the symptoms of the disease.
Now, Tracy, you have this new office I alluded to. We had a ribbon cutting not long ago, and it's in Winston-Salem, right off on Trend West Drive. Just to be clear, though, and it's a beautiful office setting. Now, this is where people, if they contact Chrissy and say, my mom or dad has a chronic illness and we need to talk to y'all about that, they can meet there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But that doesn't preclude it, like if I feel more comfortable, you can come to my house and do that too, right?
Yes, we do both.
Because some people, I guess, feel that they'd rather go into an office setting a little bit, maybe have a confidential discussion away from home. Was your figuring to have an office like that?
Yes, for both needs.
Right. Now, what is it, if somebody wants to get in contact, would I have to get a doctor to sign something for me to go talk to Chrissy, Tracy, or can I just call you guys up?
You can just call us, and then we take it from there.
All right, that's good. So I can have direct contact with you to set this up. I think it's great. Up on screen, before we lose time, I want to mention something. mtnvalleyhospice.org is a website which I hope you will check out. And I also want to remind you it's a nonprofit agency, and you guys, I think, have a raffle coming up which we want people to help with, so they can find out all sorts of things on the website. Thanks for making the trip down to the garden, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Appreciate
for
it.
having us.
And thanks for the service you do for everybody, seriously. Appreciate it. Good people. We'll be right back. Back now on Triad Today. Before we get to the round table, a quick shout out to the good folks at Senior Botanical Garden. SeniorBotanicalGarden.org is the website. Hope you'll visit that, but more important, visit the garden. And hey, they're back scheduling weddings and meetings and all sorts and luncheons, and so get in touch with them. Now to the round table. On my right, but always a political left, Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster and journalist, socially distanced behind him. Our two good buddies, Dave Briggs, Director of High Point Theater, and Keith Granberry, founder of Helping Hands Consultants. Guys, let's get right to it on a serious note. A rash, it seems, of every week of some kind of a shooting of an unarmed person of color at the hands of police. And unbelievably, another incident, this time in Elizabeth City, not that far away from us. And this time, a man unarmed, fleeing, running away, and is shot in the back of the head and killed. there's nothing worse than that, except for making things worse by not releasing the body cam footage immediately from all the cops. They want to release one piece of body cam footage edited. Here's my question. Should North Carolina law be changed so that police must immediately release their unedited body cam footage from all the officers to the families of anyone who died during an arrest? And I say immediately, but timely. Ogie, what are your thoughts?
I think that's perfectly reasonable, Jim. I think you don't want to disempower the police, but at the same time, you need, what we're asking is accountability, responsibility, professionalism in our law enforcement. That's really the bottom line.
Dave.
And I actually agree with Ogie on this. In North Carolina, the sheriff has to request the judge to release that body camera video. So I think there's some layers to the onion here that really need to be addressed as well, and a tragic situation.
It is. Mr. Granberry.
Accountability, number one, is first and foremost, and I think that the parents or the family should be allowed this video. I mean, the fact that they have a video and it's been edited is just unlawful. And the second thing that really irks me is that we seem to believe that a person's past is reason enough to degrade them after they've been shot unlawfully. This man was shot in his back running away, and his past does not have anything to do with that. It's wrong, and they should be punished to the extent of the law, period.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if somebody was a serial killer and you catch him and you put him on trial and you find out that he's had 3 other serial killer events, I guess that's relevant. But in this case, no, I agree with Keith. All right, on a little bit lighter note, a state senator from Forsyth County has introduced a bill that would create a horse racing event similar to the Kentucky Derby. I know Ogie has his Kentucky Derby tie on. I don't know if we'll see that or not. But anyway, this legislator says that North Carolina having a derby of that sort would create jobs and boost our economy. Guys, would you like to see a horse racing big event come to our state? Ogie.
I love it, Jim. I love it. Back in the 90s, Randall Terry, my boss at the High Point Enterprise, spearheaded an effort to get legalized pari-mutuel wagering passed in North Carolina to build a first-class racing facility year-round with horse and greyhound racing, get farmers to divest from tobacco and start raising oats and barley and wheat and hay. It's a total economic package, and it would be wonderful for this state. I'm serious.
All right, Dave Briggs.
Western North Carolina is full of horse farms, for want of a better term. I'd love to see it, frankly. We used to have it where I grew up in Ohio and Kentucky, of course. Now it will take a lot of years to become a tradition like the Kentucky Derby.
Right. Keith, what do you think?
It's never going to become a tradition like the Kentucky Derby. That's a one single event. But I'd like to be able to dress up like Ogie, who looks like he's going to the Kentucky Derby right now.
Give me a mint julep.
That's right.
Not all of us. That's right. Ogie's looking sharp today. All right.
Always sharp. Trust me.
Meanwhile, officials in Forsyth County want to give a Winston-Salem can manufacturing company over $3 million in incentives to expand their plant. They say the expansion would create 94 new jobs. Now, is this corporate welfare again, like we talked about before, or are you okay with it? Ogie.
We've been talking about this as long as I've been around here, Jim. I mean, literally, I think the pendulum swung toward incentives a lot. I mean, it became almost a necessary evil of doing business. Now I think it's swinging a little bit the other way, but I think $3 million is not an exorbitant sum. I think I would probably be, and they're high-paying jobs too.
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, I actually agree with Ogie.
All right,
on
Dave,
this one.
come around.
Something's wrong here.
So, yeah, but the incentives, we really do have to be careful. What is the real value of that incentive? What kind of tax base is going to help bring to the community? And that's really the critical question on whether they offer that incentive or not.
Keith, $3 million for a can company.
For a can company?
Well, a can manufacturer.
You said for a can company.
Yeah.
I think it's okay if it's going to bring jobs to the community. I absolutely think, and they're going to be there long term. So they have to sign a long term lease. They can't be like a Dell, come in and then turn around and leave quickly. So there has to be a long term agreement.
Yeah, Dell came in and said, we're going to do all this great stuff and we're going to build all these computers. And then a few months later said, you know what? People like laptops. They like, I don't know, we didn't anticipate that. Yeah. All right, the North Carolina House Judiciary Committee, and it's similar to the Judiciary Committee, I don't know what that means, is, I can't get my words out out today. I'm so taken with his tie. They're proposing the end of the practice whereby county sheriffs can be the ones to determine who gets a gun registration permit. You can't even buy a gun unless you go to the sheriff, get a permit so that you can buy the handgun. Sheriffs, they say, can sort of better determine the character of a person than just leaving it up to other people. Very quickly, guys, you okay with changing this or leaving it with the sheriffs? Oh, yeah.
Who determines the character of the sheriff?
Well, I don't know.
I think they should have a say in it, but I think
Yeah.
it should be a psychiatrist, a mental health professional, maybe a lawyer.
I think you leave it with the sheriff. I don't want the central scrutinizer in Raleigh who doesn't know his public.
I do not want the sheriff determine who gets a gun permit. I don't want police determine who gets a gun permit. I need to go through a system,
that's
and they
right.
need to be checked.
They do. Now, finally, guys, a new survey by a British swimwear company identifies the best topless beaches in the world, which include those in Denmark, Germany, and I didn't know Germany had a beach, California, and North Carolina. Guys, have you ever been to a topless beach? And if not, would you go, Ogie?
Where exactly was this beach in North Carolina?
Dave.
I go topless on the beach most of the time, but a lot of the folks that I see there, I do not want to see topless.
Keith, have you ever gone to topless beach? Or?
No, I have, but I heard they have some good ones in St. Bart's, but I've never been there before.
Yeah, all right.
I would never go to a topless beach.
No, I think, oh,
Not today.
oh man.
too cold.
Somebody's not telling the truth. Well, that's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. On a sad note, last week, the oldest living woman in the world passed away. She was 116 years old. She lived in Charlotte all her life, and recently she was asked, what do you attribute your long life to? She said, well, I guess it has something to do with living in a city that steals all the industry from the Triad. It's pretty insightful for her to say that. It's true. It's true. All right, for all of us here, we're going to Denmark or St. Bart's. I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next